Hello and welcome to Cover to Credits, the bi-weekly podcast where we discuss books and their movie adaptations. I'm Ian George.
And I'm Adina Hilton. In this episode, we'll be discussing Blue is the Warmest Color. Blue is the Warmest Color was written by Julie Moreau, originally published in French and published in 2010 in France, and then the English language translation came out in 2013.
And the film adaptation came out in 2013 and was directed by, and please forgive me, everyone, he's a French director. I'm just giving a shot at his name. Abdelatif Kashish.
That sounds right.
That sounds like a white person, an American person pronouncing a French name.
Yeah. So I apologize to anyone who knows anything about French in general because we don't, and we are doing our absolute best, but we will probably screw it up.
Yeah, there's French names in this, and it's gonna be rough if you know anything about French pronunciation, like my friend Katie. But first of all, I am a little sick. If my voice sounds a little bit raspy or not nasally or even worse than it usually sounds. But the other thing is maybe you can hear it a little better. Maybe you can hear how nasally and bad it is because we are talking on brand new microphones.
We got microphones.
We bought audio equipment.
Yes.
So we finally decided, we had done 10 episodes.
Yep.
And we were like, I think it's time that we buy some microphones and set up recording in our apartment.
Yeah, making our tiny apartment even smaller.
So our living room is now a living room / home office / recording studio.
Yes, but we're making it work.
We are.
So welcome to the new Cover to Credits audio system.
Which probably sounds the exact same.
Yeah, probably.
So back to the adaptation.
Yes.
Blue is the Warmest Color.
Blue is the Warmest Color. So it's in French. It is French. And it's about these two women who fall in love, and mainly about one character, Adele. In the graphic novel, her name is Clementine, or however you pronounce it in French.
Yes.
And in the movie, her name is Adele. So for purposes of simplification, we have decided to just call her Adele.
Yeah, we're going with Adele.
Yeah.
If we mess up, we'll probably just bleep it. I don't know. Just so the listeners aren't confused who aren't familiar with the story. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so this story follows Adele.
Yeah.
I'm already on the edge of messing it up. Follows Adele, and it starts off in the book with Emma, the other character, reading her diary.
Yeah.
Because when the graphic novel starts off, Adele has actually passed away.
Yeah, it tells you that like the first page.
Yeah.
Emma's just like on the train, whatever, and she's reading like a letter or something from Adele, and it's just like, I'm dead now. Here's my letter to you, basically.
Yes. And she gives her, it's not in her will, I don't think, but she gives Emma her diary.
Yeah.
From when she was in high school and around the time they met.
Yeah.
So
it's like Emma in the present reading Adele's diary about when Adele was in high school and kind of around the first time that they met, which is interesting.
And so the movie doesn't do this kind of flashback setup. It starts off with Adele in high school.
Yeah, and follows her the whole time.
Yeah, so this is kind of like where that story begins, and for the most part, the graphic novel takes place in this flashback kind of setup of high school. Mm-hmm.
But they use it in this really cool way in the graphic novel, and I kind of love how they use the art and the color to show you like where you are in the story.
Yeah, because the present, I guess we'll call it, after she's died, is in color, and when it goes back, it's black and white, and the art style is really interesting. I think in this graphic novel, it's very loose. But I think that really works for this story.
Yeah.
Because it makes it so much more personable. It really feels like one person sat down and did this entire thing.
Yeah.
The coloring and the art and the story, and it just kind of makes
Which
it a more
she did.
which she did.
Mm-hmm.
But it just makes it this really personable kind of telling and narrative.
Also, it can kind of feel like someone's story being told. Like she's reading the diary, but it could just as easily be this graphic diary almost, you know?
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
it's Adele's life just told in these pictures as Emma is reading the diary. And it's so cool because, so the title is Blue is the Warmest Color. And they emphasize the color blue in all of these black and white shots. So in the past where, you know, Emma's reading Adele's diary and you're seeing like Adele's life and, you know, when she's in high school and everything, there'll just be these little colors of blue. So it's all black and white and gray, and then there'll be blue colors. And obviously, the one that stands out the most is Emma's hair, because she has blue hair when they meet. And so...
And the diary's blue, too.
And the diary's blue. And so it's super interesting because I was reading that the author, Julie Moreau, was saying how she kind of wanted it to represent memory. So when you think back in time to your own memory, like things aren't super clear, you know, they might be in black and white or there might be fuzzy bits, but there are like flashes of something that's meaningful or like something that sparks something in you. And blue is supposed to kind of represent that.
Yeah, it's very kind of tied to emotion.
Yes.
I guess you could say the art style and the way everything's depicted in this story, which, you know, like I said, it works. I think it really works for this.
Yeah, and it really like grabs you. And so whenever you see a bit of blue, you're like, oh, this means something, obviously.
So one of the most, I think, interesting contrasts between...
Oh, yeah.
So this is a graphic novel.
Yeah.
A relatively short one.
Yeah, it's 156 pages, which is pretty standard or even like a little short for a standalone graphic novel.
Yeah, I read it. I finished it in 2 sittings, like pretty easily. And yet somehow this was translated into a 3-hour film.
3 hours. We're not joking. It is 3 hours.
It's 2 hours to be technical. It's 2 hours and 59 minutes. Let's be real. Let's give credit where credit's due. He kept it under 3 hours.
Which it's kind of shocking how long it is. But like how little dialogue is even preserved from the graphic novel.
Yeah.
You know, you'd think like, oh, well, it's 3 hours. They probably kept like every scrap of dialogue and then added more and, you know, added extra scenes. And there are extra scenes and like longer plots. But honestly, there's just not really much dialogue at all.
No, it goes to the style of the filmmaking.
Yeah.
Which is very, I don't know. I don't want to call it self-indulgent.
Yeah.
Because it does work in a lot of ways. It kind of adds to this kind of realistic tone.
Yeah.
Where scenes go on a lot longer than they need to.
Or than you're used to seeing in a movie. Yeah. You're like, this feels like this should have ended like a minute ago.
Yeah. Or there's a classroom scene early on in her English class where they're going around reading from a book. And the book thematically ties in to the story because it's about love and fate. But you're watching a bunch of kids who aren't even characters in this story reading for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, it's a long time devoted to this.
Yeah.
But it gives it this weird sense of realism where, you know, in life you don't get to choose when a scene or a class ends or whatever, and you're just kind of stuck
in these moments that don't mean much at the time.
Yeah. Or, you know, dinner scenes.
Yeah.
You'll just watch them eat dinner for a minute longer than the conversation will have lasted.
Yeah. And I feel like it adds to that, you feeling like a part of Adele's life.
Yeah.
And that you really kind of get to know her and get to know what her life is like. And that helps you be more attached and invested in her character, which is important as she continues to get older.
And it's very tied into the way it was filmed, too.
Yeah.
Like the camera, there's a lot of, it's very intimate. There's a lot of medium shots and a lot of close-ups.
Yeah. Not a lot of wide.
Yeah. Not many establishing shots or wide shots. It's always like real intimate, real close to the characters. You see a lot of kind of textural elements and close-up shots, and that also it's similar to the graphic novel in that it makes it feel very personable, and that and
it does what like close-up panels can do in the graphic novel, you know, focusing on something, which is cool.
A lot of detail shots, and so between the length that scenes go on for and the way it's shot, and there's no score either.
Oh yeah, I feel like that's the biggest atmospheric difference.
It's true.
I feel like you don't really notice it until you notice it. And then you're like, oh crap, like there's no music in this.
It's tough to notice the absence of things sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just kind of adds to the breadth of the scenes, for lack of a better term, where there's so much
they feel longer.
Dead silence or people just talking or chattering in the background. So yeah, the movie has a very distinct and I think well thought out tone.
Yeah.
Whether it's something you'll enjoy or not, I think it was all very purposeful.
It was, yeah.
In those sequences and everything.
It's definitely different because you don't see a lot of movies that do this, especially with no score and with the dialogue being kind of almost improvised feeling.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think all of the dialogue was improvised, but I think some of it, you can definitely tell that it has that flavor to it.
Yeah.
And so there's like almost this awkwardness or this out of place feeling when you're watching it that I'm not used to when I'm watching movies.
No, and it's tough to tell because it's in French.
Yeah.
But it's also very monotone.
Yeah.
Now, when it's emotional, it's super emotional.
Yeah.
But for a lot of like the normal conversations, it's very kind of monotone and like one, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it seems like a real conversation, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're really just kind of sitting in and listening in on these two people.
Yeah.
So where are we at in the story? What's going on?
Nothing has happened so far.
Great start.
Adele is in high school and, you know, she's just like, oh, I'm in high school and high school things, blah, blah, blah. And of course, you know, there's this boy at school that she's kind of attracted to, and it seems like he's into her too, named Thomas.
And her friends are super pushy about them getting together.
Yeah.
Her friends are real fucking annoying in the movie.
Awful.
They're real bad.
They're the worst people I've ever seen.
Like, so when Adele does go out with Thomas,
yeah,
and she's talking to her friends about it later, they're like, did you two have sex last night? I can smell it on you. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, did you two fuck? No, it's fine. Don't tell us.
Yeah.
But, like,
they're like super pushy and weird about it.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus.
And this is kind of where those long scenes really add to the feeling of it.
Yeah.
Because they just keep going on and on about pressuring her. It's really weird. But Thomas is so sweet.
No, I love Thomas.
He's such a nice kid. Like,
he has a short arc in this movie.
He does.
And in the book. But he's really sweet. And, you know, going into this that she's not going to end up with Thomas.
No.
You know, it's all about her and Emma, and you know that. So, you know, this is just going to be a transition / a way for her to figure out, you know, her own sexuality. But for him representing that, he's still kind of an interesting guy and like a good person, I think.
Well, and I really appreciate this, I think, and I think a lot of people will in terms of a gay coming out story.
Yeah.
Because it'd be easier to tell it with, oh, she dated a guy and he was a huge douche.
Yeah.
And guys suck. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it presented her with a guy who seems like everything. I think it's set up to be he's everything that she should want.
Yeah.
And she just isn't invested in it.
There's something wrong.
There's something wrong.
Yeah.
Something missing. And even if she doesn't know what it is at the time, I think they do a good job of kind of
showing that.
Yeah, and showing that. And so it's really sad and heartbreaking when she has to tell him, like, because they do have sex and it's not good for her.
Yeah. Yeah, in the book they almost have sex but don't, because Adele doesn't want to. And
yeah, she backs out kind of.
Yeah, and
right
he's very
before.
respectful of her too. You know, he's like not pressuring her, but you know, it's all like internal for her. You know, it's not anything that he's doing to her or anything. It's just, you know, her internal struggle and trying to figure herself out. And so, yeah, she breaks things off with Thomas, and it's really sad because he's a sweet guy and he seems like he likes her, but Yeah, and then he's gone.
Yeah, and then he's out of the picture, which
Yeah.
sucks because he is the only good male character we see in this entire film.
Yeah, pretty much. But around the time that she first starts going out with Thomas, we have the iconic scene where Adele is walking across the street and she passes Emma on the street, and they just kind of like lock eyes, pass each other, and then look back at each other before they're like gone.
Yeah, in the movie, it's very similar in the movie and the comic where it kind of goes back and forth between them a lot. The cuts, and it feels both like a short, quick moment, but also very long and kind of impactful and dramatic.
Yeah, it has that feeling like it's supposed to mean something important. And it's got that feeling like love at first sight, or, a spark, like something happening to both of them.
Yeah.
And this kind of propels Adele into these confusing feelings and emotions when she's with Thomas, and then beyond that too.
So Adele has a friend in school, Valentine, who's in the movie too.
Yeah.
And he invites her to go out to the gay bars.
Because he's gay.
Because he's gay and out. And so she agrees, and they go out together, and she ends up going to a lesbian bar, and that's where she runs into Emma again. She sees her.
Yeah. And an interesting note for the graphic novel, because she's telling this through diary entries, you can actually like compare the dates and see when things are happening. And so her meeting Emma again in the gay bars happens almost 2 years after they first see each other in the street.
Real? Oh my God, I didn't.
Yeah, if you look at the dates, it's like almost 2 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never I didn't pay that close of attention to the dates other than like kind of.
A lot has gone on between this.
Yeah.
Like, her relationship with Thomas, and then their breakup, and then, there's this part where, she almost has this thing with her classmate.
Yeah.
Yeah, like her classmate like kisses her, and then Adele kind of thinks that it means something more, and then her friends kind of backs off and is like, "Oh, I don't mean it that way." Like,
I didn't think you'd care that much.
Yeah, and so this is definitely the time that she's still figuring herself out and everything. But yeah, they eventually do reconnect, but that whole time Adele doesn't even know the girl's name. She just calls her like the blue-haired girl in the street.
Yeah. And she starts having, just after seeing her the one time, she has these like dreams
about her.
Yeah, of her like being all up on her, and kind of the movie has a masturbation scene with Adele thinking about her, and so clearly there's a strong sexual connection she has to Emma just after seeing her once. So she sees her at the bar, and she is like freaking out a little bit. Yeah. But they end up talking. Emma kind of approaches her because I think Emma recognizes her too.
Yeah.
And they talk a little bit and kind of hit it off enough.
Yeah, or like mildly flirting with each other. Yeah. But Emma's with someone else.
Yes.
Sabine.
And before they leave, Emma asks, like, where did you go to school at? Because they talked about her being in high school, and she tells her. And so then Emma kind of unceremoniously just leaves. And then the next day, she shows up at her school.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because she's hanging outside with all of her friends, and they're like, who's that blue-haired girl over there?
She's obviously some, like, lesbian.
Yeah,
Ooh,
some punky lesbian woman.
Yeah.
And Adele's finally kind of like, fuck you guys, you kind of suck. And she just walks over to Emma and starts talking to her. Although I guess that's not entirely true, because in the book, she's a little more mad at Emma.
Yeah, for showing up at her school. Yeah.
So this begins them hanging out.
Yeah.
And also starts this conflict with their friends. Yeah. Where eventually they just kind of figure out, because Valentine tells them that they went to the gay bars.
Yeah.
And they confront Adele and are like, "Oh, are you a lesbian now?"
Yeah, and in case you forgot, when we were talking about how shitty her friends were, they continue to be crappy. And the confrontation in the movie is even more intense than in the book. In the book, it's just kind of like there's this one girl who like flat out rejects Adele and is like calling her, lesbian and a deviant and like all of this, every homophobic thing you could think of. But in the movie, it's more than just one friend. They're kind of all ganging up on her. And it's great though, because Adele actually like pushes her in the movie. I just wanted her to like beat the crap out of her.
I know. They're so obnoxious. Oh my God. It's just the worst.
But it's really sad because, they don't even know if it's true about her, but just even that like hint of, oh, she's going off with this like punk looking girl. She's obviously a lesbian and we don't want to be associated with her. It's like, oh my God.
And I think they can tell Adele like is kind of uncomfortable and not wanting to talk about it. And they take that as like a confession and then just pounce on her.
And I think it's tough for Adele because, she's not even sure at this point if she identifies as a lesbian or what she's feeling. She just knows that she's attracted to this one person and just wants to be with her. And, I feel like this is an issue throughout the book, at least, where Adele is like always trying to figure out what's going on with her and is just like having a really tough time. And her friends don't make it easy on her during this.
Yeah, I think this story is just such a good story of coming out, or discovering your sexuality, especially in high school, because I feel like her being in high school and that age, there's a lot of conflicts between discovering your sexuality and being in that kind of environment that I think both the book and the movie explore pretty successfully. And I think the book takes it farther with kind of the repercussions of either being bisexual or gay or anything that isn't status, quote unquote status quo. So it's a really good story though, I think, in both adaptations about that.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, Adele's friendship with Valentine is really cool. Like he is basically becomes her best friend in the book. In the movie, there's just that one part where they go out to the gay bars together and then he's gone. But he really becomes like a really good friend to Adele and, a shoulder to cry on. And, he talks to her about being gay and how like now those friends that rejected Adele are also rejecting him too because they heard that he went to the gay bars as well. So like there's some solidarity there. And I think that's super interesting and, gives Adele someone to identify with and to talk to about this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of conversations where she's talking about how she's in love with Emma with him and she doesn't know what to do and she doesn't know how she feels. And so he's just a way for her to express her inner thoughts to us on the page, which works really well.
Yeah, yeah. So, one of the more interesting kind of divergences between book and movie is Emma's current girlfriend, Sabine.
Yeah.
Because the movie just kind of forgets her.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
It's like she existed and now she's gone.
And it kind of weirdly causes a almost thematic problem with stuff that happens later.
Yeah.
But the book, it's a very big problem.
Yeah.
So Emma tells Adele, because Adele's kind of questioning her, like, hey, how's Sabine? Like, how are things going between you two? And Emma is kind of honest in terms of like, they're not great, but she tells Adele that, Sabine was very important for when she was coming out. Yeah. And she introduced her to a lot of her current friends. And she
got her involved in like the LGBTQ community. Yeah. And sort of got her into that group and helped her accept that about herself. So she feels like she owes a lot to Sabine, even though their relationship is not healthy in a lot of ways. Yeah,
you definitely know that there's issues between them and it's not a great relationship, but you can also see why Emma would feel obligated into staying within the relationship or at least trying to make it work. But obviously Adele doesn't want that shit.
No, Adele's like, oh, I'm just gonna be like super sneaky and like hang outside your apartment and like wait for you to show up and then like try to find you. And she knows what she wants kind of in some way. She wants to be with Emma, whatever that means, she's not really thinking about sexually. She just knows she wants to be with her.
Yeah. And this is a large chunk of the book is her wanting to be with Emma, and
Yeah.
Emma's kind of like, and I think
No.
Emma's also, it's interesting. Emma's kind of questioning Adele a lot as to, in
Yeah.
terms of what she really wants.
Yeah, because I think she feels attracted to Adele as well,
Mm-hmm.
but she doesn't want to kind of invest her love into Adele if this is just like a phase for her.
Yeah.
Or if she's just curious. You know, there's like confusion and, you know, mistrust a little bit on both sides. And so it's kind of interesting because they are friends for a long time where they're talking a lot, you know,
Yeah.
on the phone, they get together and everything, but, you know, nothing ever happens between them. And it's sort of this back and forth. And then finally they do end up sleeping together for the first time. And it's a really sweet scene.
Yeah, it is. It's really well done in the book. But yeah, the movie just kind of forgets Sabine.
Yeah.
And then they end up together.
Mm-hmm.
And this leads us to what I can only call the fucking in the
great
movie.
fucking.
The great fucking of Blue is the Warmest Color, which if you
know
have-
anything.
know anything about this movie, it is probably the sexual content
Yeah.
of the movie.
Yeah.
Especially the first sexual encounter
Yeah.
between Adele and Emma, because my God, is it graphic.
And my God, is it long?
Yeah, it is. It's just over 7 minutes from what I read.
So it's 7 minutes long. I don't know if you can like imagine that.
That's not foreplay either.
No,
it
it's
gets
just,
right into
they're
it.
just doing it like the whole time. You're just watching 7 minutes of these actresses pretend to have sex with each other. And it is very convincing.
It's super. I mean, the only reason you don't see either of their vaginas is because another one of their body parts is in that area.
Yeah.
Like, it's super. You see pretty much everything.
Yeah. And also they put like fake vaginas on top of
Apparently.
their vaginas. Yeah.
Like,
although like what kind of
to
difference
what
does that
almost
make?
to what point,
Yeah.
I guess. But so this is it's a really interesting aspect of the movie.
Yeah.
Because there are problems with it, and I
Yeah.
really had to think a lot about it to kind of come to my conclusions about it.
And people have talked about this. Like when it came out, there's kind of like talk about this and criticism about it. I mean, I think the first thing is that, you know, the director is male and the stars of the movie are, you know, straight.
Mm-hmm.
And while that's not like you can't have a movie about, you know, queer themes with,
No.
you know, straight people, it's like it just didn't seem like that perspective was taken into account.
No.
Like it doesn't
The way-
feel like they had queer people involved
The way I
in the
see it-
making of this
No,
movie.
the way I see it is if you're a man directing two straight women in a lesbian sex scene,
Yeah.
you better like prep yourself so much for this and take, you know, other people's take other people's perspectives into account, and
Yeah.
like so much so that because you have to expect the criticism.
Yeah, you
it's gonna
have to.
come. And my biggest issue with the scene is that I'm okay with the length of it.
Yeah.
Or I could be okay. I could be okay
Possibly.
with it. But the biggest issue is that there is no communication between Adele and Emma during this scene.
No, they don't talk.
They don't talk at all. They're just immediately...
It's 7 minutes of just them like groaning and moaning and sexing and no dialogue.
Which, you know, in this situation, this is Adele's first time
Having sex with a woman.
having sex with a woman, and
Yeah.
only second time just having sex in general.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you're straight, gay, or anything in between. You're not good at sex yet.
No. The second time you have sex, you are not good at it.
And if you're not talking, you're especially not going to be good about it.
No.
And, you know, so that's what was, you know, I think this movie for a lot of the beginning is very, I think it feels very real.
It does.
And it feels like it's really taking this issue of discovering your sexuality and the
And we have the
repercussions
raw
of it.
emotions too.
Yeah.
Very raw feelings. Yeah.
And, you know, it feels very real in that way. And it feels like it completely abandons this perspective in order to just have this really graphic sex scene.
So in the first scene, the scene directly preceding the sex scene is just them kissing in the park, I think. They start kissing in the park and it's very intense. And then it just cuts to them in a bedroom somewhere and they're just like doing it. Like that, it's just like a straight cut into it. You know, they're not like fumbling and getting into the door and like, you know, there's no lead up or anything to it. And there's something super interesting that I really want to mention is that I was trying to figure out like what it was visually about the scene that just like felt off. And so I was looking stuff up and I was reading that the director specifically quotes that when we were shooting these scenes, I wanted to film what I found beautiful. So we shot them like paintings, like sculptures. We spent a lot of time lighting them to ensure they would look beautiful. So he literally is like, I wanted them to look like sculptures and paintings, which are objects and not people.
Yeah, I wanted to literally objectify them.
I wanted it to be art and not connection.
And the movie even makes a visual comparison because the scene before this, they're in a museum looking at art and it's just like butt shots of female sculptures and nude paintings. Yeah. So it's setting up this like comparison of women as objects, sexual objects. Yeah. And, you know, watching it, there were, for the most part, it's filmed the same way the whole movie is. There's a lot of close-ups, a lot of, you know, kind of very detailed close-up shots of what's going on. But every once in a while, it would cut to a shot that's like a medium shot, like side view of them.
Their bodies all connected and
doing a sexual act. It's a little too well lit. It's a little too bright. And it just suddenly, I'll call it the porno shot. Yeah. There's suddenly just a shot that looks like it just wants you to take in the sexual act without saying anything else and like with the camera.
Being in there with the character, you know, it takes you out. Yeah.
And that's the whole issue with this sex scene is it's not from any character's perspective. You don't know what they're feeling, any emotions other than just like euphoria. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just pure passion and euphoria. And, you know, like I said, it being 7 minutes isn't the issue. Yeah. Because I get it. It's like their first sexual encounter. Yeah. And maybe if it had like some points in it where maybe at one point she's uncomfortable with something.
Yeah. Or she's asking questions, you know, or.
Yeah. Like, give us a reason this is 7 minutes other than just like no dialogue, all sex. Mm-hmm. So.
And something interesting to note about this is that the author, Moreau, did not approve of the sexual parts of the movie. In general, she wasn't very critical of the movie, like it taking a different tone and like, you know, the plot being a little bit different. But she did say that she found fault with the sex scenes, and that to her they felt very cold and pornographic. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas the graphic novel, that one sex scene, you know, it illustrates them having sex.
Yeah, and it's probably the longest. There's a couple other scenes where they're intimate. Yeah.
The graphic novel though shows more of them like post-sex, just laying in bed talking. Yeah. And a lot of intimate moments like that. And it really
and them talking to each other. And then they have the voiceover of Adele's diary going on in the background, you know, talking about how, you know, she just wants to be with Emma and how she loves her. And it's just like, so it's kind of giving you some structure, you know, it's not just 7 minutes of silent groaning and grunting.
And there's another sex scene later that's not as long. It's like probably, in the movie that's like 3 minutes long or something. Yeah. And it's just them scissoring. Yeah. Like, once again, no dialogue. Nothing else.
Nothing leading up to it.
Yeah,
either.
It has no purpose. They never show
them, like, kissing or, like, starting to have sex. It's just them doing it.
Yeah. And there's nothing story-wise as to why we're seeing this.
No.
You know what I mean? It's not like the sex isn't telling anything about the story. It's just like,
No.
and they continue to have sex.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, oh, maybe they're a little distant now, or maybe they're rekindling their relationship. Maybe things had been bad.
Yeah.
It's saying nothing about
It's just
them.
sex for sex.
It's just sex.
So it's not telling a story.
It's almost like the director is like, oh shit, you know what we forgot? We forgot to have them scissor. Damn it. We'll just put it in later. We'll have them have sex again. God, I can't believe I forgot that. So
yeah.
that's our thoughts on the
And
fucking.
that's our biggest criticism with the movie in general.
Absolutely. But it had to be said, but we're going to try to not let that weigh down our opinion of the movie too much.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of an isolated thing.
Yeah.
You know, because so much of the movie does feel intimate and personal
Yeah.
and emotional. But the sex scenes are just
It kind of
the
takes you
opposite.
out of it.
It
a
does.
Little bit. Yeah.
It's exploitative just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
But
Sex for butt's sake. This director really likes butts.
yeah, there's a lot of butt shots.
It's
And-
like all butts.
Yeah, it is. And this kind of goes back to so the male gaze.
Yes.
And this is a term that you might have heard before, and just to kind of clarify what that means. A good example in this movie is there's a shot of Adele showering.
Yeah.
And the camera's panning up. And instead of just going up her body, it
Yeah.
has to like travel back and like show her butt and then back up to her head. Or there's a shot of her laying in bed asleep.
Yeah.
And it takes this position of being farther back and
She's
showing,
laying on her stomach.
yeah, with her butt sticking in the air. And in a shot like that, you have to wonder, why are we seeing it this way?
Yeah.
What's the camera telling us? What's the purpose of this shot?
And this is supposed to be like about Adele and following her life. And like, it's almost like, why would she have this view of herself? You know?
Yeah. And she's just
why are we
asleep.
seeing this about her when
Exactly.
she's asleep?
So it's like when we talk about the male gaze in terms of like the cinematography, that's what
Yeah.
we're talking about is when there's a shot, why is it filmed the way it is? And,
And
why
it-
is it included?
And not every scene that shows, you know, something sexual about a woman is from a male gaze type perspective. You know, there can be great shots of, you know, women, you know, butts, boobs, everything, or men as well. But yeah, when it just like doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, why are we seeing this?
Well, and this goes back to if I'm a dude, like a straight white dude directing this movie, that's the kind of stuff you really have to be thinking about because people are going to call you out on it
Yeah.
when you're sexualizing these random shots that you don't need to.
Unfortunately, some guys don't care.
No, absolutely not. And
And they're like, my art, it has to have butts.
all classical art has butts.
I want to talk about the male gaze, classical art.
Oh my God. Another time. So Adele and Emma's relationship continues in the movie from here.
Yeah.
They move in together and
Time is passing and we don't really know how much time is passing.
yeah, it's interesting. It kind of doesn't do anything to make it obvious how much time has passed. You just kind of pick up context clues
Yeah.
as it goes. And eventually Emma's a teacher. I'm sorry. Adele's a teacher. Emma's an artist. And I don't
Yes.
think we mentioned this yet.
No.
Emma goes to art school.
Yeah, when they
And-
first meet.
Yes. And it doesn't play a big role in the graphic novel.
No.
In fact, like any role.
Not really.
But
Besides being like, oh, she's like cool and has blue hair
Yeah.
and she's an artist and like that sexual appeal.
that art school sex appeal.
Yeah.
So this is interesting because both the graphic novel and the movie kind of go into their relationship kind of becoming turbulent and kind
Yeah.
of falling apart.
But in completely different ways.
Super different ways. And the movie kind of explores this through their socio-economic backgrounds.
Yeah.
Adele kind of comes from a more working class family.
Yeah.
Whereas Emma comes from a higher class family, I guess, and she's involved in the art world.
Yeah.
And this is really highlighted in a scene where they kind of host a party where all of Emma's art friends come and gallery people, and they're kind of
Yeah.
entertaining them. And this movie features a lot of discussions about art
Yeah.
and literature and interpreting it. And it's interesting, but sometimes I don't know what it's trying to say.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't really get it the first time I watched it. And then I was reading like articles about it later and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I kind of understand. It doesn't go out of its way to like show you what's really going down, I think. But when I watched it a second time and I knew what I was looking for, I could kind of tell how they were highlighting, you know, all of Emma's friends being, you know, the way they were talking about art and culture and type and stuff like that, and how Adele the whole time, she's the one that cooks the food. You know, she's the one that's serving the food and playing the hostess and making sure everyone has enough to eat and has drinks and everything. And then she's the one that likes doing the dishes later. You know, she is put into that working class / more feminized role in their relationship, which is kind of interesting.
And the director has gone out to say he has strong stances against, like, I think the art community, quote unquote, and like talks about working class people and knowing what I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about his stance on that.
Yeah, but he's more critical of people in that artsy, aristocratic, higher class structure. And I think that goes back to his childhood or something.
Yeah. And I know in the movie, I think this does work well in terms of narratively for the movie, because early on Adele's talking about books and reading them for class. And she specifically mentions that she doesn't like when teachers kind of overanalyze things and explain them too much. Yeah. Because it kind of takes away from her enjoyment of them.
And her imagination.
Yeah. So this ties in well to a bunch of Emma's snooty art friends overanalyzing things.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's a lot of discussions, and some of these art people go on so long about subjects that I'm like, is the director trying to make a comment about this?
Yeah, is he talking through one of these characters? And the one that stands out the most is like, I don't even know his name. This is another thing in the movie. They don't like tell people's names very often in the movie. No. So you're like, I don't know who this guy is. But I just call him that one guy at the party. Because he's like,
there's two guys at the party who suck, but he's probably the
biggest
worst
one. And it's interesting because he's like a gallery owner and he like has a lot of influence. So Emma's almost like trying to impress him so that he'll show her art in his gallery. And so he has this like power over her, which I think is interesting as you watch this scene play out. But he is like just one of those dudes that likes to tell people about his opinions and how he like knows everything about art.
He's pontificating to everyone
at this party. And then he gets on the subject of the female orgasm, which if anyone knows anything about the female orgasm, it's this guy, right? No, not
absolutely him. Not this dude.
But it's just him kind of being that guy who thinks that he knows things and is sort of lecturing these women around him about why women enjoy sex more and why he knows that that's true, and like talking about art and talking about the male gaze in art and how men are trying to capture this ecstasy in women.
And yet with the comments the director's made about his own film and lighting them like paintings, I'm like, is this the director's opinion?
I think that this is the director.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah.
Yet this is the douchiest like fake art commentary in the whole movie, which he seems against. That's why it's like confusing to me.
It is.
I'm not sure the perspective of what the director's trying to do.
Yeah, I don't know what we're supposed to be getting out of this scene.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
It's kind of a mystery, and and I think it's not the first time we've encountered this probably in an adaptation, but it's the one that is most interesting to me, is how the director or, you know, whoever was the one who mainly adapted the story from the graphic novel. Looked at this novel and was like, I really want to talk about art from this.
Yeah.
Which is nowhere in the graphic novel.
No.
And it's kind of one of those instances where a director's really putting his own opinion and twist into the original source material that wasn't there at all.
Yeah. And I actually did read something about that. I read that he originally wanted to make a movie about like teaching and teachers, which makes sense because Adele is a teacher and she teaches children.
Yeah.
And that he kind of saw this and she was a teacher in it and then was kind of like, oh, well, I'll just do this and like make it about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of time spent on her in the classroom.
Yeah.
Once again, like all this time, you're like, some of this could have been edited.
Yeah.
You know, I get that it adds to the tone.
Yeah.
But also,
It's 3 hours.
I don't want 3 hours of a tone.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but so this like socioeconomic, social class thing ends up being like a problem in their relationship. And you can kind of tell that Emma wants Adele to be more high class or to be more artsy in some ways.
Yeah, she wants her to write. She's telling her, oh, you write so well, you should write. And Adele's like, I like teaching. It's something I like doing. Just let me teach.
Yeah, just leave me alone.
And you can tell that's not quite enough for Emma. This leads to Adele having an affair with another teacher, another male teacher in her classroom. Emma finds out, there is fighting.
There's a brutal scene.
There is just this gut-wrenching, just emotional. So this is something that's interesting to me about this adaptation.
Yeah.
Both the graphic novel and the movie are very emotional.
Yeah.
But whereas the graphic novel is like a spectrum of emotion, the movie is either intense passion or absolute despair.
Complete misery.
And the actress who plays Adele, my God, I've never seen anyone act with snot the way she does.
Oh my God. She's always in the scenes where she's crying. It's so intense.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, she's amazing in this role.
Yeah, but it's just like, it's so depressing because like Adele regrets this affair. And you kind of understand why it happened because Emma was sort of being distant, spending time with her artist friends and not hanging out with her and kind of acting like, Adele wasn't enough for her and like wanting her to be more, art minded and everything. And so you can kind of understand why Adele acted out in this way and had this affair. But of course, to Emma, there's no justification, which we're not saying cheating is okay, but like,
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to in the movie earlier on when we're like, what happened to her other girlfriend, Sabine?
Yeah.
And this is like, did she cheat on Sabine with Adele? If she did, she's being hugely hypocritical right now.
Yeah.
But we kind of never get an answer for that. No. So that's kind of a little bit of a problem with this story, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Is not knowing what happened to her other girlfriend, Sabine. And so
they break up in the movie. And now let's go back to the book. So we're going back in time in the book when they first get together. And so when Emma and Adele first get together in the book, she's still dating Sabine.
Yeah.
So they kind of have this affair that goes on for months where they're just like sleeping together and hanging out. And it's all while Emma is still with Sabine.
Yeah. And so this is partly, why there's so will they, won't they?
Yeah, this
drama
goes on for
and
so
conflict.
long. Yeah.
And but eventually she breaks up with Sabine.
Yeah.
And wants to be with Emma.
Adele.
I'm actually getting them confused more than the different name for Adele.
Yeah.
But they end up together. And it's really sweet, and their relationship seems good. And there's a scene where they go to Adele's parents.
Yeah.
Where Emma's staying the night.
Yeah.
And Adele hasn't come out to her parents.
No.
She's saying Emma's a friend helping her with her philosophy. and the parents are totally like, whatever, yeah, sure. So they have sex in Adele's room.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Emma thinks it's a good idea to go downstairs in the middle of the night for some food from the fridge, totally naked.
Yeah.
Where she runs into the mom. And this starts the chain reaction situation of them throwing out Emma and this fight, and Adele also like leaving to go with Emma. And it's this really powerful scene.
Yeah, it's really amazing, honestly. It's one of the best sequences in a graphic novel that I've seen. Because it starts out, it's just the two of them in Adele's room, and they're just talking about how much they care for and love each other. And they're kind of questioning, like, what is love? Can it be eternal? And like these big questions. And then it's like very, romantic. And then Emma's like, okay, I'm going to go downstairs and get some food or some
Sorry,
milk.
I skipped that part.
And Adele's like, okay, sure, that's fine. That sounds normal. And, the whole part, Emma goes downstairs and all of a sudden she sees Adele's mom, downstairs, and they see each other. And this whole sequence plays out completely wordless and text free. There's nothing written. It's just images.
Yeah.
And it's so visually amazing. It's just, like Emma running back upstairs, and then Adele's mom grabbing Adele's dad, and then them both, like, you can see that they're yelling, and
they're taking Emma's clothes.
They're
outside,
taking Emma's clothes. They're all
think.
trying to put the girls are trying to put their clothes back on, and then they're like throwing them out. And it's just really sad because, this whole time Adele has been really struggling with her sexuality, like for admitting it to herself. Like she doesn't want to admit that, she's a lesbian, or she doesn't want to admit that she has feelings for Emma in a lot of ways. And this gives you a window into why she's so conflicted.
Yeah.
Because her parents, she just knows that would never accept her, and they don't. They throw her out. And it's really sad, and I think it shines a light on Adele's character a lot in the graphic novel, where, her friends, turn on her, and then her own family.
Mm-hmm. And this kind of, adds to the narrative of, struggling with coming out and your sexuality. And, I think that's why the graphic novel is probably better about trying to capture this narrative more than the movie. But so following this, it's kind of similar beats where she talks about, I suddenly had to grow up a lot faster, and she moves in with Emma. And
it takes a huge time jump, though.
Yeah, within like a page or two.
It's just like, oh, and now I'm 30. So it's like 12 years have passed. And it's just like, oh, okay. Like, sure.
I suppose. And she kind of just starts like, I don't know, highlighting or bullet pointing like.
Yeah, adult life.
Yeah, and then we started having some problems. And it is interesting. She talked about how Emma is more outspoken about her sexuality and is more invested in like the politics of it and being and fighting for
and being in a group.
Whereas for Adele, it's much more of a personal thing.
Yeah, it's very intimate for her, and it's not something that she wants to display to everyone. And so they kind of are in opposition in this, and that sort of starts to tear their relationship apart. And this also goes back to Adele not fully accepting herself, I think, even though all this time has passed. Like, she still is not at peace with who she is. So, and it's the same kind of setup. Like, she starts to have an affair with someone from her school and, tells Emma about it at some point, and then Emma throws her out.
Yeah. How long was she thrown out of the house? Do you remember in the book?
It's a couple months, I think.
Okay, I guess that's... Because I was going to say, once again, in this situation specifically, Emma's being a little, I think... Hypocritical, yeah. Because she cheated on Sabine with Adele.
And, like, she throws her out. I think this really hurts her because, the whole time before they got together, she was sort of worried that this was just a phase for Adele and that she would kind of, like, go back to being with guys and like would just leave Emma in the dust.
Yeah, she pushes that more in the graphic novel.
And so I think when Emma finds out that Adele has been having an affair with this man from her school, it kind of just strikes that inside of her, you know, feeling like she's being replaced and that, Adele doesn't really like want to be with her, or it was just a phase for her. And the thing that I want to talk about, though, is that this is the part of the graphic novel where it's really easy to just kind of fall off the story a bit.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, what's happening?
That's how I felt a little bit, because the time jump is so drastic.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, like I said, bullet points
It's just like,
them
oh,
having
yeah.
problems with their relationship, which the whole story up until this point is about them getting to their relationship, getting to this point,
and it's
then
been such an up and down to get here.
and you're finally like, yes, we're here, and then it's like in one page, it's like, and this is kind of how it falls apart.
Yeah.
Which was really tough to kind of like take in, I guess.
And to just accept like, okay, sure, like I buy into this. But it's interesting because so Julie Moreau wrote this in her late teens and early 20s. And I was reading some criticism of it, and just that her being so young, it was almost like a young person's version of like what it would be like to be in your 30s or to get to that time, and like not really understanding how to accurately portray that. Like the agony and the intensity of like the ups and downs of a relationship and the drama, you know, surrounding it. Like she's got that down. Like that is so accurate and it feels so real. But then she gets to like adulthood and it's almost like she loses the words and the narrative to even like portray that well. And so I think maybe her age is showing a little bit in that.
Because Adele starts taking pills and medication.
Yeah.
And kind of...
She's like, I'm addicted to pills now.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Huh?
Why?
Which the Adele in the movie should have been taking pills.
No, she should have.
She was just a mess.
Depressed as fuck.
So, should we finish the graphic novel story arc, or...
Yeah, we're already talking about it.
Yeah, so she's taking pills and she starts to become physically weak.
Yeah.
And she finally meets with Emma again.
Yeah.
They meet on the beach and things go well.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're gonna...
reconciling.
Yeah. And they're passionately kissing on the beach. And it seems like they're going to do it.
Yeah.
And then Adele has like a heart attack.
Yeah.
Which puts her in the hospital.
Yeah.
Where they inform Emma that she has some kind of heart problem that came from her abusing medication.
Well, they do say that she probably had it before.
Oh, okay.
And that the pills kind of like made it worse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But they're like, yeah, so she's just going to die now.
Yes.
And Emma's like, what? Like, this cannot be happening. And it's really like intense and it's so shocking and a little melodramatic. You know, she's addicted to pills and then she's in the hospital. But it's really sad because like they took so long to get together and then they're together and then their happy years are like just skipped over.
Pretty
and then
much.
it's like, oh, and they're broken up again.
Let's get back to the drama.
They finally get back together and they're like this nice scene with them on the beach. And now Adele is dying, which we knew from the beginning of the graphic novel was going to happen.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Emma's back at Adele's house and is reading her diary and is remembering her, even though she's dead.
Yeah. So she passes away.
Yeah, it's really sad.
And gives her journal to Emma with one final message. It's this really beautiful passage that the book ends on.
Should we read it?
You can. Yeah, go for it.
Emma, you asked me if I believed in eternal love. Love is something way too abstract and indefinable. It depends on what we perceive and what we experience. If we don't exist, it doesn't exist. And we change so much, love must change as well. Love catches fire, it trespasses, it breaks, we break, it comes back to life, we come back to life. Love may not be eternal, but it can make us eternal. Beyond death, the love that we shared continues to live. It's so sad.
It is. I think it works so well because it's honest about love.
Yeah.
While also being hopeful about it.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. So it ends really well, despite that, I think, that hiccup kind of in narrative leading up to it. It
still ends it in this poignant,
yeah,
emotional conclusion.
Let's cut back to the other sorrow of Adele.
Yeah.
This is so annoying because they fucking... It's a totally different ending in the movie, but equally sad.
So
now we have to sit here and talk about two
very sad,
awful,
but very
depressing
different endings.
God damn it.
Yeah, so like the movie takes a completely different approach, which is basically like love exists and then it's gone and then you're just screwed and your life is miserable after that.
And you have snot running out of your nose
and
all the time.
Like, oh my God, like the rest of the movie. So they break up And then there's like still 40 minutes left of the movie. And I'm like, what?
This is there was the fucking and now
Yeah.
there's the sorrowing.
The sorrowing. And it's still 40 minutes. And those 40 minutes are just Adele being really sad all the time.
Is this like a staple of French film?
I don't know.
I feel like it's I know nothing about French film, but I feel like the cliche is it's like really dramatic and sad.
Yeah.
Is like usually
it's covering that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So eventually Adele meets up with Emma again, and it's been a couple years.
Yeah.
And they meet up at a cafe.
Yeah.
Where they're talking about where they're at in their lives. Emma's with this woman who we were introduced to at the party. And Adele's kind of like, how are you doing? Like, do you miss me? Don't you want to fuck?
Don't you want to get back together right now?
And you can tell that Emma does miss their relationship, like the passion they had.
Yeah.
Physically, yeah. Because like apparently that kind of passion isn't in her new relationship as much.
Yeah.
But her partner has a kid who she says is like really important to her.
Yeah.
There's this scene though where Adele takes Emma's hand and just starts kissing it and then like sucking on her fingers, and then they lean forward and just start licking each other's faces.
Yeah.
And Adele like, puts her hand between Emma's legs.
Yeah.
And
they're in a cafe.
They're in a cafe in broad daylight.
Yeah.
And even though you can kind of see some out of focus people in the background, but they're so obvious about it.
I know, it's so weird.
It's very over the top.
And so they're kissing and stuff, but then Emma eventually breaks away and is like, I can't do this. Like, I'm with someone else now. And Adele kind of asks her like, do you love me anymore? And Emma just shakes her head. And I'm just like, oh my God.
And once again, the snot and tear work of the girl who plays Adele is phenomenal, because she just is so just ravaged with sadness.
Yeah. And then like the final scene of the movie is basically Adele going to an art show for Emma and kind of like talking with her and like seeing some of Emma's old friends that she knew from the party.
And it's sad too, because she's in this scene and the scene before in the cafe, she's wearing blue.
Yeah.
And they even comment on it in this scene. So like clearly she's
trying to recapture that blue from their early relationship. Yeah. And then it's just like she feels awkward and she leaves. And that's the end.
There's kind of a weird aspect to this ending, though.
Yeah.
Where she's talking to a guy who she talked to at the party.
Yeah.
And he's clearly flirting with her and into her.
Yeah.
But he's also a huge douche.
No, he's the worst.
And I don't know if we're supposed to think he's a douche.
Yeah, I don't think we are.
I don't think so either. Because the way it ends, she leaves and kind of like walks around the corner and is walking away. And this guy, seeing her leaves, runs out
to follow her. And
she's out of sight, and he starts to walk towards her and then turns around because he thinks she went the other way.
Yeah. And so it's like that misconnection thing.
Yeah, and I think it's trying to say something, because the movie before kind of talks about fate.
Yeah.
And about the existence of fate. And, and I think in the same way that Emma and Adele kind of had this fateful encounter.
Yeah.
Like they were brought together by fate. In this situation, Adele and this guy kind of by chance of fate didn't run into each other.
Yeah.
God, I'm sorry, my voice is so bad right now. They ended up parting ways, which is good because he sucked.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting because that kind of brings me to talk about like kind of the message in general, like the theme of like the movie and the book.
Yeah.
And like we were saying in the movie, it's kind of about this predestination, fate, like love and tragedy that like come into your life, and you have like no control over what happens. And kind of the tragedy of love where you have it and then it's gone. And then your life is just like, you're never going to be happy again. Basically, like you've lost it and it's gone.
It's like, if you have it right now, you better enjoy it, because once it's gone, you're a sad sack.
Yeah, and then emphasis on like the class structure and like that kind of tearing them apart. Whereas in the graphic novel, I think there are questions about fate a little bit, but it's more about love and like the quote we were reading about eternal love and what it means. And then it's a lot about like accepting yourself, because Adele for so long could not accept herself and was kind of struggling with, identifying, as a lesbian, and almost like her whole life she had to like get sick and die in order to be at peace with who she was, which is super interesting. And it's really sad too, because it kind of like shows you like what this hostile climate towards, people who identify as gay can do to them, how it can like really undermine their relationships and their ability to like love themselves, which is really sad. And I think it comes through with Adele's character in the book. Absolutely.
Yeah. And, the movie early on deals a lot, I think, with, sexuality and coming out and being gay and those messages. But then it kind of just turns into a love story or a tragedy, I guess.
Yeah.
And it kind of abandons those themes, because then they're surrounded by, Emma's art friends who don't care about their sexuality and are totally open to it.
And there's no coming out drama with Adele's parents in the movie at all.
So I just kind of wish it followed through on that narrative thread that it...
I feel like that's the difference that you can tell. The book was written by a lesbian.
Yeah.
And the movie was directed by a dude who probably liked the story but didn't really give a crap about what it meant for Adele's character to have to struggle with this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So that wraps it up.
Yeah. So which one's better?
Oh man. I think I definitely have to go with the book on this.
Yeah, same.
There are a lot of things I do like about the movie.
Yeah.
But overall, it is very self-indulgent.
It is.
And
you have to like know what you're doing when you start to watch the movie.
So it's worth mentioning, we had to break this movie into 3 segments.
Yeah. We
were going to do 2, an hour and a half one night, an hour and a half the next night. But on the second night, I literally started falling asleep. I couldn't help, and my eyes were just fighting against me. So then we had to watch.
It's subtitled. There's no score. The dialogue is very quiet at times, and is improvisational, and it's 3 hours. There's a lot of factors that make it kind of a little bit of an ordeal to watch.
This movie's kind of almost like everything people probably assume about foreign films.
Yeah.
It's really long. There's kind of like
this weird tone.
Yeah, weird like silence, dead space. Really like much more sexually
explicit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't appreciate what it does, because I really think you get invested in Adele's life.
Oh, yeah.
It's so heartbreaking to see everything crumble. And honestly, the first time I watched this movie, I was like upset for days. Like it really affected me. And I think that's really amazing to have a movie to be able to do that.
Well, and I think that is the actresses'
performance.
Yeah. The actresses who play Emma and Adele above all else in this movie, their performances are out of this world.
Mm-hmm. So it is really good. And I think even the artistic elements to the direction, I think there are things to praise.
Yeah.
But I think with the criticism, and I just love the art in the graphic novel so much. Like I really like it. And I'm willing to forgive that like time jump weird melodrama thing at the end, just because the art is so good and the story is so interesting. And I just feel like that I'm more invested in Adele's story a little bit in the book, just because she's struggling with so many things personally. And in the movie, it's kind of more like, well, she's just like not good enough for Emma. Like you don't really know why Emma like doesn't love her anymore, and it's sort of like very frustrating.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, I mean, what do you do? Like,
And it's also worth it is worth something that you can read the entire graphic novel in the length of time it takes to watch the one sex scene in the movie. Like that does mean something, that you can get an equally, I think, emotional experience in a short graphic novel as compared to a 3-hour subtitled film.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do agree. The book is better in this scenario. You should definitely check it out. It's really good. Like Ian said, you can finish it in 1 or 2 sittings if you have a little bit of time, and it's really worthwhile.
It is. And this is an instance where the source material, I think, definitely got kind of overshadowed by this film.
Oh yeah.
And the controversy surrounding it, and kind of this weird,
and everyone's like, it's the one with all the lesbian sex in it, and like that is extremely reductive, obviously.
Definitely.
But yeah, I think the graphic novel was definitely overshadowed, and I honestly had no idea that there was a graphic novel until I started to like research the movie because I was interested. So yeah, definitely check out the graphic novel. Check out it. Check out it.
Check out it. That's our recommendation.
You ready for the lightning round?
Let's do the lightning round.
Lightning round.
Pew, 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 pew. God, my voice. Wow.
I'll go first.
Okay.
We started to talk about it a little bit, but then we got distracted. That one guy at the party, the second guy at the party.
Yes.
Not the one that talks about the female orgasm, but
the second worst guy. The second worst guy at the party.
He starts talking to Adele and is just asking her about what it's like to be with a woman. And it's super like, this is just like every dude that has ever approached a woman who identifies as queer. And it's just like, what's it like having sex with a woman? Is it more gentle? And you're just like, what is wrong with you?
And they've never met before.
No. And he's just asking her all these very personal questions, and it's really inappropriate, and I don't like it. And then in the last scene where he like almost goes after her but like misses her, right before that, he was talking to her about how she should really travel and see the world because it like opens up your mind.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, like fine, don't lecture me. Like,
cool. I'm a school teacher. If you want to fund my travels, you piece of shit.
He's like, why haven't you been to New York yet? You should really travel. And it's like, I mean, I know, like I want to travel.
There's no one who doesn't want to travel.
Yeah.
Don't never tell someone they should travel.
Because
everyone wants to travel.
Want to travel. They just can't afford it.
Yeah. You just can't. I'm sorry.
It's so annoying.
Okay. So this is like kind of just this random thing, but we were watching this on Netflix.
Yeah.
And then when we paused it or stopped it after the first half of it, we looked at it, and the thumbnail or the image that comes up for this movie on Netflix is this guy, and it ends up being the guy she sleeps with, I think,
that
who
has the affair
is
with.
the other teacher. But the one thumbnail for this 3-hour movie
is just this guy.
Is this one random guy who probably has like 2 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
But it's like this whole epic movie about these two women and their lesbian relationship, and they're gonna make the thumbnail one of the dudes.
Yeah.
One of the dudes. And it's stupid. He just has this dumb face, like he doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I took a photo of it. I'm gonna tweet it. This is a reason to follow us on Twitter.
This is quality content.
Look at this guy's dumb, stupid face.
Oh my God. So another thing to mention from the movie is that there's so many shots of Adele, like all up on Adele. And it's all about her mouth and her hair.
Oh God, yes.
Like there's so many shots that are just on her mouth, like just her mouth.
I had to ask Adina at one point because the girl who plays Adele, she does have a very kind of distinctive mouth.
Yeah.
She has very kind of like large lips.
Yeah.
And her teeth are kind of large. So it just like makes like you kind of like look at her mouth more than you normally would.
Yeah.
So I couldn't tell if it was me or the camera focusing on her mouth a lot.
No, it's definitely the camera.
And Adina's like, absolutely, it's the camera. And I swear to God, the next shot they showed was just a close-up of her mouth while she was asleep.
Yeah, and she's like eating. They're like very focused on her mouth. And we're like, yes, we get it. Like sexual, food, okay. Like we understand the connection. But also her hair. Like she's always playing with her hair. Her hair is always like crazy and doing weird stuff and getting in her face. And she's putting it up and then she's taking it down and then she's putting it up.
She's always fucking with it. We couldn't come up with many lightning rounds for the book, but the one thing I did really like was there's a scene where Emma is at Adele's parents' house for dinner, and this is after she's passed away, and the dad becomes really angry and goes on this tirade.
Yeah.
Because he's not happy with Emma being there, and when
blames her for Adele's death.
Yeah, and when he's on this tirade, Emma like storms off.
Yeah,
and I love it because instead of having text or anything he's actually saying, it just starts putting these little icons and images.
Yeah,
like in the speech bubbles, and it's like the French flag. And then, like, the last one is, like, them burning a woman, like, at the stake. At the stake.
And it looks like it's Emma.
Yeah. It was a really kind of...
good way to visualize
that. Creative, adding a little bit of humor into this thing that isn't funny, but, you know, it was a really... It highlights I think, the talent of the author / illustrator of this story.
Oh, sorry. Another thing is when they're in the park... and they start kissing, the sun between their lips.
The sun. I called this the first time they were kissing. And it wasn't that scene, but it was a later scene where they're making out at sunset. I'm like, they're gonna film with the sun right between their lips.
Yep.
And the cameraman's gonna be like angling, like trying to keep that sun between their faces as much as he can.
Yeah.
Because that's in only a million movies.
Yep.
I'm sure everyone knows what I'm talking about.
I hope you know what you're talking about. It's like when their faces are like close together and the sun is right between their mouths. And it's just shining between, and then they kiss and the sun is hidden. And they break apart and the sun is back. You get it.
Yeah. This movie does that, of course. Is that it? That's it for me.
I think that wraps it up.
All right.
Thanks for listening to our discussion about Blue is the Warmest Color. It was a fun time.
Yeah, there was a lot to really kind of dissect with this one.
Yeah.
Thematically. And
which is exciting. I like talking about it.
It was really great. So hopefully you enjoyed it. If you want to follow us on social media, we are Cover 2 Credits on Twitter. That's the number 2. You can find us on Facebook. Email us at covertocreditspod@gmail.com. Send us suggestions for future episodes, thoughts on Blue is the Warmest Color or other episodes we've done, or just send us an email to say hi. We really want to, we want to feel out like how many people listen.
Yeah,
so,
what you think of the show.
Yeah, anything. So do that.
Also, leave us a review on iTunes if you like what you've listened to. We really appreciate any reviews or feedback you can give us on iTunes or on any other platform as well.
Yeah, and even just a star rating is good. Like, that's enough. We don't have to thank
your job anymore because we're recording at home.
Us. I want to thank me and you for investing in microphones. All right, that's it for this week. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.